Hi, everybody. Oh, come on, there's a coffee machine right there. You should be drinking some of that, you know? You're too tired for this late in the day. More energy, okay. I'm so excited we're all here together. Look, did you know that they had these recliners here? I have never seen these before. Are these new? This changes everything. Like sometimes I sit in the audience and the chairs are very comfortable and I start to fall asleep. They optimize for that, right? They want you to fall asleep now, you know? That's just wrong. There's no way to survive. How do you get through a talk when you have sleep as an option, you know? Like, oh, that's intense. My name is Josh. I work on the Spring team. I'm super happy to be here with you all today. Look, we are at an amazing moment. Obviously, in the evolution of the Spring projects and so on, we are staring at Spring Boot 4, which comes out next month, right? November. I can't believe it's already October. That sure, time sure flies. Spring Boot 4, of course, is not the beginning of our release train, nor is it the end. There's actually a few projects that depend on Spring Boot, like Spring Modularization and Spring Cloud and Spring AI and so on. So Spring Boot 4, really, I use that as an arbitrary sort of call out or something, but you'll consume all these bits. All of them will be sort of released and updated around the same time. You'll see Spring Data, Spring Framework, Spring Integration, Spring Batch, all these projects get released. And then Spring Boot, because Spring Boot depends on those. And then you'll see those other projects, Spring AI and Spring Cloud and Spring Modularization and so on, come out after Spring Boot because they depend on Spring Boot. But that said, it's all happening roughly next month, right? Very, very exciting. And with Spring Boot 4 comes Spring Framework 7. So this is a new generation of both things, and I'm just really excited about it. We've got a lot of, I want to show you a lot of the stuff that's happening in these new projects. The code is here, obviously, for your own reference, for your own edification for later on. My name is Josh. I mentioned that. I am a Spring developer advocate, a former Google developer expert for Kotlin, what else? Java champion, and this one surprised me as much as anybody. I'm a Microsoft MVP somehow. So no, I have no idea, and we all do things that we're not proud of. Okay, look, I'm not. We all do things. Okay, we make regrettable mistakes, and I am a YouTuber, so you can find me here. I know it's very cringe, but like and subscribe, okay? Just join the adventure. It'll be fine. I'm gonna, wait, do they have water here? Sweet nectar, look at that, free water. Amazing. Okay, so we're gonna go through a bunch of stuff today, a bunch of new things, obviously. And Spring Boot 4 doesn't change, Spring Framework 7 doesn't change the minimum supported version of Java, obviously, but it's still Java 17. I think we updated the Jakarta EE baseline, however, but it's still Java 17. So that makes me sad, you know? Like, who's using Java 17? Get out of here. What are you doing? You know, come on, that's ancient software, you know? Ancient. So anyway, we're going to build a new application, as always, by going to my second favorite place on the internet here, start.spring.io. We're going to build a new application, and this is what could go wrong, huh? Snapshots. Just remember this look. This is the look of a person who is happy, okay? And hopefully that's still true in a minute. Hopefully nobody's changed anything. Okay, we have to choose what we want to call it. I'm just going to call this service dogs, okay? Service, because that'll be our sample domain. And then of course we have the choice of what version of Java we want to use. And if you haven't sort of figured it out from my inflection, I'm very, very keen on you using the latest and greatest version of Java. So you have 3 radio boxes here, my friends, but really only one valid choice, okay? It's Java 25. That's the current long-term supported and the current supported version of Java, both the 6-month and the long-term one. It is Java 25. So while you have 3 radio boxes, these other 2 are just to find out who makes terrible life decisions, okay? This is the right one to use. It is technically superior in every way. It is faster, more robust, more performant, more operations friendly, more secure. It's technically superior in every way. It's also morally superior, okay? You won't like the look of sadness and shame in your children's eyes when they find out that you're using Java 8 in production. Don't do this, okay? Be the change you want to see in the world. Do the right thing. And bear in mind that this is also mathematically superior, okay? Just, this is more than 3 times greater than Java 8, okay? That's just simple math. It's an amazing release. So Java 25, and one of my favorite features that's in Java 25, one of my favorite features is that you can do this, right? So I'm going to do a nvim hello, okay? There, yeah, do that. And I'll do void main, and I'll do io print line, and then do that, okay? So there's my that's a, actually I'll move this to hello.java, okay? And now I can do Java hello, Java hello.java, okay? So that actually works. So that's actually a script, if you will. Really, there's no I've got this new imported IO thing, which is nice, but also there's no outer class. It's a top-level method in my application. It's just nice, okay? Oops, I beg your pardon. My watch is reminding me that I should be on stage right now. I think I'm here. Okay, I hope I'm in the right room. So this is it's a JavaScript, okay? If you think about it, right? This is actually a JavaScript. It's finally, after so long, a good JavaScript. Now it's also, you notice that there's no there's no outer container class, okay? So it has no class like me, right? So it's a very, very nice thing. But one of my favorite things that you can do, if you move this to just hello like that, and then open it up. Well, first of all, get rid of the extra line. Nobody wants extra lines. And then add that in, user bin env Java minus s source. I think it's here, isn't it? Surely. Okay, minus s source 25. Oh, hello. Oh my goodness. Okay, oh my God. Here we go, almost there. We're gonna, careful. There we go. So do that, which is now arguably almost more code than the actual program, but still. And then you can do that, and then do that. I know, I'm so excited. We live in an amazing time, If you walk away from one thing, it's that JavaScript is back, okay? It's so good. So I'm so excited about this. And you can do all sorts of cool things with that, right? Now the question then, of course, that comes up is, hey, I want to have dependencies and stuff, and what if I wanted to have like a framework or something like that? Well, yeah, that's not going to be so much fun. You have to do Java minus CP and then specify the whole class path and all that. So that's not great. That said, there is a very, very, very handy community project called Jbang, jbang.dev. If you Google it, you can find it, and it's super good for exactly this because it has a preprocessor in effect that processes some directives that you encode with just regular comments at the top of the file, // and then these directives. And well, you can do some really evil things if you want to. So what my friend Dr. Dave Sire and I did was we wrote a sample program here. Here we go. Put that in there. So this is, I don't need the preview moniker anymore, right? I can use whatever. I'll just use 3.55. Okay, and I will. This is boot.java. Okay, so what we've done, one of the things that's important is that you can actually do includes, source code includes. Okay, so I'm actually telling it to treat the compilation unit as though it was this program plus whatever's in this Git repository. Okay, so otherwise I'm specifying a dependency, and I've got Jbang as my the shebang line there, and I'm using the Java 25 dependency. And so it'll actually download the version of Java that you specify and your dependencies. And since I'm using Java 25, I don't have to have a containing class. So this is a top-level method. That's a class, obviously. But the way that this thing works is that if you don't specify a class, Java quietly adds an implicit one. So technically, all this, whatever, is inside of a class. Okay. So that's why I have this thing static, is because technically it's inside of another class, and you should make that static. It looks a little weird when you see a top-level static class, doesn't it? Okay, so now with that, though, let's see. This, chmod ax, come on. Call that boot.java. I can move boot.java to just boot, I guess. Let's see if that works. I don't know if it'll work. Let's try. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. So good. So good. That's just a single source code file with a Spring Boot web server. Oh, we're back. We're so back, okay? So I'm a big fan. I mean, the world is amazing right now, thanks to this new version of Java. And so I would recommend you use at least the version of Java 25, right? There's just so much good stuff there. But okay, that said, we're going to use Java 25. We're going to add some dependencies here. And we've got a lot of stuff we're going to look at today, so let me see if I get it all right. First of all, one of the things to bear in mind is that we have new baseline dependencies, like I said. So I'll add the GraalVM native image support. We're going to add the web support. We're going to add the REST client support, right? So if I do this, one of the things that you will notice is that when you move to Spring Boot 4, everything has been modularized. And what I mean by that is it used to be there was one big jar called Spring Boot Auto Configure, in which lived all the auto configuration classes for Spring Boot. And when you added a starter to your build, that starter brought in Spring Boot Auto Configure plus some other dependencies, like a web server for Tomcat or whatever. Well, due to the way that worked, there was no clear signal for us to perceive that said, hey, I only want to build a REST client, or a client that talks to REST services, as opposed to a web server. So if you wanted to use the client support, you brought in the web server support and then disabled the server part, right? So you could get the REST client and the REST template. Well, now, since they're all modularized, since all the auto configs live in their respective jars, there's a Spring Boot starter for just the clients, right? Very common if you're doing something with AI or batch processing or integration and messaging or something that isn't a web service, of which there's a lot of use cases, then you can just bring in the HTTP client support. So we'll do that as well. We're going to use Spring Data JDBC, okay? Bring that in as well. We're going to bring in, I'll be using Postgres, obviously. There we go. I'll be using Spring Security. I will be bringing in the web authn support for Spring Security. That's a new starter there, a new dependency. That's nice. What else do we have? I think that's, do I have everything I want? It's probably everything, right? We can always add more later. Okay, hit generate, and let's go. So, first things first, downloads. And by the way, this is an alias, right? If you look at this, this is an alias to a JavaScript, right? So again, I just unzip and open UAO dog service. There we go. And first things first, we're going to connect to our SQL database. Pretty standard stuff. Make that, you can definitely see that. Yeah, it's like a building. So here we go. Spring data source URL, JDBC, PostgreSQL, localhost. That's pretty close to what I wanted, actually. I'm impressed that it offered dogs. How did it know? And then, oh, it's because of the app name, surely. Okay, my user. Password is secret, okay? Very good. So we've got our application connected. Let's build an application, and we'll talk to the database. So first things first, I'll build a Java record here, okay? Int ID, string name, string description, okay? And I love Java records. It's just a huge, huge fan of Java records. So whenever I can use that, I do, right? Dog repository. Extends list of CRUD repository, managing records of type dog. Okay, there's that. A couple of things you will notice. One of the other things that's nice about the new Spring Boot release in Spring Framework 7 is that throughout the code base, we've adopted JSpecify, right? So JSpecify.dev, I think. Let me just Google it. What could go wrong? Okay, JSpecify. Yeah, it is DEV. See, I got it right. This is basically, there's a very interesting problem, which is that Java, for the moment, doesn't have any way of denoting nullability, right? So we've actually worked with a number of different players in the ecosystem to develop a set of standard annotations. Now, these annotations, this only works if A, you use it, and B, you have feedback from that nullability support throughout the entire pipeline of developing code, building it, deploying it, and so on. And so we worked with, among others, the Kotlin team, right? So they can, if you're using Kotlin and you're consuming Spring from Kotlin, you'll see nullability information implied by annotations in JSpecify as you would if you used Kotlin's native nullability features. If you're using Java, you'll see it when you use our build tooling, right? For Java and for Maven and Gradle, we have validation that'll break the build if you want it to there as well. And in IntelliJ, JetBrains as a team, they're working on that as well. So now at every step, you see feedback saying, hey, you're trying to use a null where it's not appropriate to use a null, right? And you can see that here, right? It's saying non-null type argument is expected. So that's all over the framework. So I can say non-null, right? Org specified annotations, non-null. There you go, non-null. Good. So isn't that this will, if you use it consistently and apply it everywhere, this will make your code a lot more safe, right? Which is good. Okay, so I've got a repository. I'm going to create a simple method here. Let's try this out. Okay, so collection dog find by name, right? And you can, of course, using Spring Data, you can say select all from dog where name equals, I think it's just like that, right? And it'll take advantage of the parameter and so on. So let's actually create a runner, right? And I want to create something that actually exercises the thing that we've just built. So I'm going to create a class here. Okay, runner implements application runner, and it's going to be, initialize, implement the interface there, inject the repository, and we're going to call repository.findByName, and we'll look for my favorite dog, Prancer, and we'll just print it out. Now, of course, I can use the new, I said dog, IO print line, right? This is a new thing in Java 25, again, very nice, very consistent. But the question then becomes, how do I register this? And with Spring, we have a meta model API. We have an API behind the scenes that a lot of you probably don't interact with unless you're doing something very sort of in the weeds, frameworky plumbing kind of stuff. It's called the bean definition, and it's a meta model that describes how your objects are shaped, how they're built. It describes the life cycle, the constructors, the properties, the dependencies, what things depend on what. And we take all the input sources, if you think about it, we take all the input sources, be it XML, please don't use that. We take Java config, we take component scanning, we take all this stuff, and we turn it in to bean definitions, right? At this point, we still know where it came from, but we don't care, right? At this point, Spring just sees a bunch of bean definitions. And we can use that to validate the structure of the code base, and then eventually they all get turned into beans, actual objects with state and memory and allocations and all that. Constructors get called and so on. So all that is very good. And the Java config stuff has been around forever. This is even older. Component scan has been around forever, right? And these are different ways of getting, configuration sources into bean definitions, right? They get normalized into bean definitions. And I like Java config and component scanning. I use them all the time. So if I wanted to register, this Spring Boot application is technically a configuration class, right? If I have at Spring Boot configuration, it is meta annotated with at configuration, and therefore any class that has Spring Boot application is technically also a configuration class. So in theory, I could do, bean runner, and then inject the repository there, okay? And, do something with that, right? I could actually return a new runner like that. And that's fine, and people will do that, certainly. But there's a new, there's a little bit of inflexibility here, right? What if I wanted to create more than one runner? I could certainly do that, but what if I wanted to do that based on some input, some dynamic thing that you want to use to drive the definition of all these beans? Well, as soon as you want to start doing something like that, where you're programmatically registering beans, you've got a couple of options. You can use application context initializers, right? Which is a functional style of configuration. That works, but it doesn't feel like it's part of the component model in my mind. It feels very sort of out there, right? I didn't even mention it here, but it is actually a thing you can do. There's functional config, right? And you can do it, but you have to take hold of the application context that gets created when you call spring application.run. This is actually an application context there. And you have to change the way this gets built before you can actually take advantage of that. So you can't just register it by importing it or defining it like you could other components in the ecosystem. And also, the other option is you can use bean definitions and directly by creating a bean definition registry. Is that right? Bean definition? No, bean factory postprocessor. So bean definition registry is the subclass, right? Postprocessor, this one. So if you did something like that with the bean definition registry, you could programmatically register bean definitions and so on. But again, that's a very low-level API. You're dealing with strings and classes, and it doesn't feel like regular Java objects that you create in the normal way. It feels like reflective programming. So what I want is some way to have a nice, strongly typed functional DSL that lets me dynamically register things, and not for nothing, also that happens to be more concise than this. This isn't unclear. We understand what's happening here, but it is 4 lines of code to tell Spring, hey, I want an object of type runner, please. Just make that happen, right? So what if we could have all those things and more? Well, now in Java, in Spring Framework 7, there's a new thing, which I quite like, called a bean registrar, okay? So implements bean registrar. And again, you can continue to use Java config and all these other things just as you will. But I quite like this. First of all, you import it just like you would any other Java config class. So @import, okay? And now I've got this bean registrar. For the simple case of just registering a single bean, well, just do this, right? Done. So that's this. So now, and by the way, you could actually, I guess you could make this a bean registrar. That would be circumlocutus, I guess, but you could. But I've got a secondary one here. And you can import this by adding this to any configuration class or just add it up here. And so let's just see what that has bought us. Let's just start the application up. Okay. Okay. So it printed out the dog in the database. There we are. There's our dog Prancer. And we can also, find by name, I suppose. I forgot to do that. This.find all.for each. Okay, there we go. So now I've got these... I've got this runner, and this is for the simple case, but what if I wanted to, like I said, I can do some very interesting things here. I can actually customize how the bean is registered. I can register the bean of type runner.class, but then I get this spec, and I can use the spec to describe, okay, this is just like you can with the Java config. I can put @description on Spring Beans, and this has been here forever, right? That annotation, I can specify that kind of stuff here, right? The description, right? And I can do a supplier, which is nice, type safe, right? So now I would just return a new runner, okay? And the runner takes a dog repository. I need that dog repository, right? So I get the dog repository. Obviously, if you just did this version, this one over here, this will actually discover the constructor and then discover that there is a parameter in the constructor that is easily resolved by some other type in the context, so it'll provide that dependency for you. But if you want to control how the thing gets created, well, you need to look up the thing, right? And you can do that here by looking for either a bean provider or a bean. In this case, I'll just use the bean of type dog repository. Okay. There's that, and replace that with a lambda. And there we go. So now, let me see. And you can also do things like fallback and supplier and background. Is it lazy? Is it auto-wireable? What is the order? All that stuff you can specify here, right? Okay, so this is here. Extra line. I don't need 2 runners, right? Okay. And by the way, you might notice that I'm moving a little slow as I type. I've undertaken a spiritual journey to learn Vim motions. Okay, and so I'm using them from within IntelliJ here, and I'm just moving a little bit slower. It's not good. It's actually quite awkward for me because what you don't appreciate is that I used to be not fast, but not this slow. And there's actually even a conference called Spring I/O, which is a nice show. And there, let me see if I can find the conference, Barcelona. Okay, here we go. This one, there was actually a talk there. A little embarrassing, little awkward. Hopefully the Wi-Fi works. Stop torrenting, please. Thank you. Here we go. Sessions. Okay. And on the second day, okay, yes. There's a presentation by a developer advocate, my friend Anton Arhipov from JetBrains, called El Rapido, Coding Like Josh Long. The problem is I'm no longer coding like Josh Long. This is Very awkward, very awkward. So just, anyway, if you're feeling like you've been let down, trust me, me too, okay? I'm told that these Vim motions will make me a better person, not just a better engineer, like morally, more upstanding person in the community, but I'll figure that out later. Anyway, I like this new bean registrar thing, and remember, it's inside of a method. So I can do things like this. I can register, whatever, right? And do something like that and register beans programmatically. I can look at the beans in the context as well. I can actually look at the registry and say, hey, I can look at this right here, and I can look at other beans and see if they're available and so on. So I like this approach, and obviously for our purposes, let me just run this again. Now that we've used the longer drawn-out form, it does the same thing. But obviously, I was quite happy with what we had before as well. So let's comment this out. Okay, here we go. And for the simple case of just I want to register a bean, well, it's a lot less code, isn't it? It's actually just, it's a lot less code than the Java config equivalent. So I could easily have 20 different beans, and it would just take 20 different lines. That's it. I quite like that approach. Okay, so now we've got that. We've got our repository. I think I want to build a simple controller and maybe build an API out of this. Okay, so let's start to flesh one of those out. We'll call this @response body dogs controller. And we'll have get mapping, and we'll have an endpoint here called dogs. And I can imagine, for now, just to keep it very simple, I'll have a collection of, I'm going to return JSON, basically. By the way, that reminds me, another the big thing that's nice about this is we're using Jackson 3.0. It just got released, brand new version. And so all throughout the Spring ecosystem, we support both the old ones and the new ones, but now it's Jackson 3 by default, which is quite nice. But it is a different set of annotations and APIs, and so you won't accidentally, you have to go out of your way to use the new ones, right? It's there, but it's a totally different thing. So if you're looking for the old types, they're not the same. It just works. It should just work. That's the goal anyway. We have some places where there's some idiosyncrasies because again, it just got released, but by the time GA comes around, I think most of that all be just fine. So here we go. We're going to inject the dog repository. Let me just inject it in the constructor here. Private final dog repository. Here we go. There, that's better. Okay, add that, and I'll say this dog repository find all. Okay, and I want to transform it, so I'll stream through it, and I'll map each dog into this new simple map. Okay, so ID, dog.id, and name. Okay, dog.name. Okay, very good. And I'll turn that into a list, and I'll just return it as I go. So to list. Here we go. Good. Now that's a collection of map. What is the issue with this? Oh, I have to. This is an int. Let's just push it down to object. There you go. Okay. So now I've told the type system what's going on, and that's good. So I've got a version of the API. Let's see if that works. Restart. Okay. Go over here. Localhost 8080 dogs. Here we go. Oh, lockdown. Well, I have to disable the security for just a second. Security. Comment that out. Comment this out. Command-Shift-I, reload. Okay, dogs. Very good. So there's my simple endpoint. Now, of course, this is the first version of the API. It's not great, but it does work. But imagine that one day I decide I want to now introduce a new version. But people, maybe I can call this this attribute. Maybe this is dog name or something, right? So now people have depended on this API, and I want to introduce a new version. Well, of course, now I get into the question of how do I serve up two different versions of the API so that I don't break people depending on the old one. Well, there's a new feature in Spring Framework 7 to support versioning. So this will be the 1.0 version, okay? And I'm going to tell Spring Boot that the default version, API version, is 1.1, okay? So now I have room to build up dogs 1.1 and later, right? And here I'll just return the whole dog object, okay? So, we'll call this dogs classic or something, I don't know, whatever, okay? So this dog repository find all, voila, okay? Reload that. And now I want to tell it to, how do I distinguish from which version I want, right? I go over here and I need to specify API version, use query parameter, or use header, or use media type parameter, or path segment, or whatever. There's lots of different strategies here. I'll just use a query parameter, and I'm going to call this API version because I'm very original, okay? Here we are. Now, let's try that. We go over here. HTTP 8080 dogs. Which version do I get back right now? I get the default is 1.1, so I get that. But if I want the old one, I can say API version equals 1.0, and I get back dog name and so on. Okay? Built in, easy to use, very nice, very flexible. Okay, so good. I've got a little service. I've handled the case where I have maybe evolving APIs. You know what else I want to do? I like dogs, obviously, but cats are pretty cool too. So wouldn't it be nice if we could build a service or a client to talk to an API that gives us access to facts about cats? Well, that's what I want to do. But before I move on, by the way, first things first, I got to force this build. I just realized this is going to be, it's not going to go well. I'm going to force myself to be using jacksonbomb.version 3.0.0, right? Because that just came out. I want to use Spring as opposed to the RC3, which is what I think the default is. Spring security version will be 7.00 snapshot. And let's see, Spring data bomb.version. Okay. Okay, bomb.version is 2025.10. Okay, now obviously by the time you're using this with GA code in a month's time or so, you won't have to do any of this, but here we are. Okay, snapshot, very good. Okay, so I want to build a client, and that client will allow me to talk to a cat service, okay? Now, I remember I said we have the ability now to to just declare a dependency on the REST client support, right? So obviously I can use the REST template or the REST client if I want. By the way, if I'm using Spring Boot Startup Web, like I have been for years, if I'm using this, then you'll get everything you would have gotten before if I just bring in Spring Boot Startup Web. But now it's nice, and I can say I want the web server support or I want the client support or both. Okay. But what I want to build a client. Now, obviously, I could build this using the REST client myself, sure. But I want to do it using the easier supported interface clients. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I'll say record cat fact. Okay. At JSON property. That's the old one, by the way. Fact number. Int fact number. Okay, there's a fact, and then there's an interface to that. So I'll call this cat facts. Okay, and this feature existed in Spring Framework 6 from like 3 years ago. But what's nice is that it's just auto set up for you. So here we go. We'll do HTTPS catfacts.net API. Okay. And we're going to return a wrapper, an aggregate. Okay, so cat facts response, and that has a collection of facts. So we'll say cat facts response. Oh yeah, there you go. Nice. Love it when a plan comes together. Okay, so I want to import. I want to have this automatically set up for me. Easy to do. Just go over here to your any place where you have an import or a configuration class, and say import HTTP services. Okay, so do that, and now that'll automatically be set up, so I can go ahead and now inject that into the runner. Okay, here as well. So I'll say private final cat facts. Okay, and inject that. Voila. Go down here. This .facts for each. It's a great API. Works great. Okay, let's see what we got. There we go. So, cat eyes don't glow in the dark. They only reflect light. The average lifespan of an outdoor-only feral, non-feral is about 3 years. An indoor-only cat can live 16 years and longer. That's awesome. Okay, so now we made a call to that service, and mercifully, even despite the sometimes iffy touch-and-go Wi-Fi at this wonderful conference, it worked. But what if it didn't? What if there's an ephemeral error, something that was causing that service to fail? Well, I want to make sure that I am making an attempt to retry the call, right? And so now in Spring Framework 7, we've got a bunch of new supported resilient capabilities. So you enable them by saying @enable resilient methods, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and simulate an error as opposed to trying to denial of service, whatever that actual service. So I'll create a risky client, okay? And let me register this in my registrar over here, okay? Registry.registry risky client.class, fantastic. And, or you could just, I could have made that a component, I suppose. That would have been fine too. So what I want to do is I want to have I'm going to call, imagine I've got a method here. So I'm going to say void do something that might fail, okay? And I'm going to make sure that it gets retried if something goes wrong. So I'll say max attempts equals, let's say 4, okay? And I'll keep track of how many calls I've made. There you go, okay? And let's see. So I'm going to say this dot count dot increment get. So I'll say if this is less than 3, then I'm going to throw an exception. Okay, and I want to specify which exceptions get that matter. So I'll say connection, bad exception. Okay, there you go. Great API. Here we go. So I'm going to say I want this to include that exception, include bad exception. Now this looks fairly familiar and indeed was inspired by the Spring Retry project. So that will, going forward, I think you'll see we're going to be using this more and more, right? It's still there, but obviously this is the preferred approach if you get everything you need out of it. So and then we'll say io.println done. Okay, so it's going to throw an exception. Let's see, there we go, trying. Okay, done. So now let's call this method in the runner. Okay, we'll do that over here. And I'll say risky. Oh, the IDE doesn't yet know about that new one. So here we go. Okay, add that to the constructor. And we'll say this.risky client.do something that might fail. Fantastic. This, by the way, it's basically my entire life is this method right here. Okay, here we go. Try again. Okay. Oh, yep. Oh, wait. Bad exception. Yeah. Oh, right. I threw the wrong one. Bad exception. Oop. No use in a string here. Okay. What's that want? Oh yeah, we got to add that to the checked exception. Oh, that's fun. Okay. So trying, done. Okay, good. So it got through, right? So that's pretty neat. Another thing that I really like is there's also a concurrency limit. So you can make sure that you never have more than 10 invocations of this method happening at the same time. Right? It's like a limit, basically. So I can make sure if I've got some downstream service that might falter or whatever, I can make sure that I limit that here by using @concurrency limit. It's a little hard to set up a demo because it involves lots of threading, but you get the idea. It's good to protect downstream resources with that method, okay? So we've got the I think we're in a good place. It's time to get this thing into production, right? We've got a client, we've got Jackson 3 in the mix, we got our new version, we're using Java 25, all that good stuff. And there's some stuff we need to do to get this into production. And so let's do that. One of the things I want to do is add security to this application. So I'm going to go over here, not there, whatever that is, pom.xml, and I'll add my Spring Security dependencies here. Okay, add that. Add this. Very good. So there's the Spring Boot support for Spring Security support for WebAuthn and just the regular security stuff. Now, what I need to do is I'm going to lock down the application and I'm going to support different kinds of authentication. So the normal approach, if you want to use Spring Security in an application, is let's say I go over here and I can create a security filter chain, right? Security web filter chain, I think. That one, yeah. So there. HTTP security, inject that, and throws exception. And I love Spring Security. It's just such a good project. But the thing is, it used to be that you had this one monolithic thing, right? So as soon as I guess it is just a security filter chain. As soon as I start to take control and register my own security filter chain, then all the defaults that you get from Spring Boot go away. So even if I want to add to the configuration, I don't want to change anything, I have to redeclare that I support form login, right? I have to redeclare that. I have to redeclare that I want customizer with defaults. Then I can begin the business. And I have to also redeclare, the authorization. So I'm going to say all endpoints must be authenticated. All that is the default, right? What you get by default when you set up Spring Boot with Spring Security on the class path. And only then can I start using all the other stuff that I want. Well, now in Spring Security 7, there's this nice approach where I can create a customizer of type HTTP security and return that, right? So now I can just add to it. It's modular configuration, right? So HTTP security dot authorize endpoints. I still want to control that, right? A dot any request authenticated. Very good. And let's see here. I want to. What else do I want to do? Well, instead of redeclaring all that other stuff, I can just do. Let's see. Authorize. What's the issue? Oh, there we go. I can say I want to. Let's say one-time tokens. Okay, this is a nice feature that's been in Spring Security for half a year, or maybe it's a year now. Very, very nice feature. So one-time, there you go. Get rid of that. And one-time tokens are you get, again, passwords are not good, right? I don't like passwords. They are a problem because they are, I mean, how many people use passwords successfully, right? You're meant to use a password manager. You're meant to do something to change and keep your passwords good, but they don't, invariably. And they get, there's this received wisdom. Oh, you should rotate your passwords every 3 weeks or months or years or whatever. But what do people do when they get that? Most people just add one, right, to the existing password. It's bad security policy. So in a lot of contexts, governmental especially, it can actually be a problem using passwords. They actually discourage it for certain use cases. And so, one-time tokens are a different idea. The idea there is there's still a password, there's still a user in the system, but the way that you authenticate is by sending them a message out of band in some place where if they have access to that thing, they must therefore be who they say they are. So for example, I could send you an email, or I could send you a text message or something like that, right? And that would be, if you have access to your phone, maybe you are the one who you say you are, right? So I'm going to say new token, one-time token success handler, okay? And the idea here is you have a one-time token. I'm going to say response.getWriter.println, you've got console mail, okay? And I'll say set header, HTTP headers, dot content type, media type, dot app text plain value, very good. So I'm going to send that out to the client, but then behind the scenes, I'm going to print out a link they can click on to actually get authenticated. Imagine I'm using SendGrid or Twilio or Java Mail or something to send them an email or text message or whatever. So I say, please go to HTTP come on, Josh, you got this. Localhost 8080 login OTT token equals one-time token.get token value. Okay. So that's my one-time token. And of course, in order for this to work, I need users. So let's create that. I'm going to do something terrible. Never ever do this, okay? I'm going to create in-memory users for the demo, but you should obviously do something more secure, like, I don't know, store it in a database or whatever. Okay, so with username, Josh, okay, dot build, and I'm going to create a username with with roles, user, and the password will be PW, okay? Now, of course, the password should be encoded. Obviously, it doesn't make all that much difference in this case because you can very clearly see what the password is because it's in source code. But in a real situation, you'd use a password encoder there, and then this in turn will use the best, latest and greatest strategy, which is bcrypt at the moment. So I'm going to inject the password encoder, and I'll say .encode and do that. Okay, there we go. So there's my in-memory users, and I'm going to do one-time token login. So let's try this. Okay, here we go. Oops. It's sad. What did I do? Oh, did I forget to? Yeah, I have 2 of these. See, this is that's the other thing is you can't contribute configuration. Okay, now let's see what I did wrong this time. Can't configure any request after itself. I feel like that's the default, so I don't need that. Okay. Okay, now we're good. So now we have application. Dogs is locked down. I can log in, username and password, obviously, that's just fine. But let's try incognito window, okay? I'm going to ask for a one-time token. Josh, send token. Okay, you've got console mail, great. Click on this link. Okay, go back here, paste in the same window. It says, please input the token, sign in. There you go. There's my dogs, okay? So now I've got, I've got one-time token. I think that's pretty good, pretty convenient, but it's still a password. It's just not my password. Somebody's got a password. It's their Gmail password or whatever, right? Somebody else is maintaining a password. The idea here being that maybe Google has done a better job of managing all that for you, but still, it's a password. So what I want to do is avoid passwords if I can. And one way to do that is to use web auth n, right? So I'll configure, this is the one-time token. I'll configure web auth n. This is Passkeys, right? How many of you have used Passkeys before? Okay, good. They're trivial to set up if you are using Spring Security, right? So our name, and then it'll be allowed origins, HTTP, localhost 8080. Okay, restart. Okay, so now I go over here to dogs. Let me just incognito, there we go. Go to dogs, and now it's going to ask me to log in, which I shall do. I have to set up a passkey first. Josh, PW, okay. Now I go to web auth n register, okay. And in my passwords app, right, I need to, hold on. Yep, Passkeys, get rid of that. It's controlled on the Mac. It's in iCloud, right? So it's controlled by the Passwords app. And if I save a passkey here, it'll be usable from any iCloud connected device. So devox, okay, register. And I can do all sorts of things. I'm going to use my fingerprint, but obviously if I was on my phone, I'd use my Face ID. It's still the same public key behind the scenes, okay? Add a passkey. Fantastic. Now, I go here, dogs, incognito window, log in with passkey. Okay. Okay, so now I'm logged in to my application. Pretty okay. That's a much better result. It's way more secure, and it's much easier for people, right? It's actually the best of both worlds. You almost never get that. It's a rare win. It's both better ergonomics and better security. Now, what I also want to, sometimes I want both, right now, each one of these is a factor. The Touch ID, the web auth n, the passkey, and the one-time token. These are individual factors that tell me about the user. But what if I'm doing something very sensitive and I need to be 100% sure? Because each of them is actually, well, not the passkey so much, but all technologies have weaknesses. So you want to have a better signal that this is who they say they are. And so you want to combine multiple unrelated factors. That's multi-factor authentication. That's a new feature in Spring Security 7. So what I shall do is I will add support for enable global multi-factor authentication authorities, and I will use global, this is called granted authorities. I'm sorry, I knew that. Granted authorities dot factor. I want the password, maybe, and I want granted authorities dot one-time login, one-time token. Okay, or whatever. You can mix and match. You can have as many as you want, okay? And there's other things that they're working on that'll be in the release, we hope. And one of them is like, I want them also to have authenticated in the last 10 minutes, right? Like we have other signals that we can use that are not by themselves a strong signal. They don't tell us everything, but now that we have multi-factor support, we can say, I've got this one signal that tells me who they are, but I need extra information. Like, have they been here in the last 10 minutes? Or are they logging in from the same IP across 2 different requests or whatever? So that capability, that plumbing is being set in this new release, okay? Okay, so let's try this. Did I restart it? I don't know if I did. Okay. Dogs, okay? Josh, PW, I'm going to log in. Now it's saying, okay, great. You also need to do one-time token. Click on that. Go over here. Copy and paste this. And voila, okay? Enter, and there's my data, right? So now I've got multi-factor, secure, password. I can do all sorts of amazing things now. Obviously, you want to get this into production, so you want to make sure you're taking advantage of, these are not new features, but always a good reminder, always take advantage of virtual threads and, of course, GraalVM, right? So with that, my friends, this has been a very brief but hopefully thorough look at some of my favorite features in Spring Framework 7 and Spring Security 7 and Spring Boot 4 and Spring Data 2025 and all this good stuff. Just an amazing release. Get the bits, try it out. We want to hear from you as we wind down and go to the final version here. Please try it out. Thank you very much for your time. I'll be doing a talk on GraalVM with Thomas Wertinger, the founder of GraalVM, tomorrow morning. Come see that. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Who learned something new, by the way? Good. Who had fun? Okay, good. Look, I appreciate that. I'm so glad to hear. Please, I've been doing this a long time. I have no shame. Please vote. Please vote. Come on, go vote. Thank you. Thank you so much.